So this question comes from user Against Gravity, and he says, I hope you're doing great. Thanks. I've been following your content on overcoming pornography addiction, and I really appreciate the insights you share, especially around using tools like blockers and aiming for 90-day streaks. I wanted to share another perspective that I've come across, which focuses on expanding the space between trigger and response. The main proponent of it is the YouTube channel Beyond Compulsion. Instead of relying on blockers, this approach encourages building awareness and self-control, giving you the freedom to make a conscious decision in each moment. Over time, this can help reduce dependency on external tools and strengthen internal willpower. I'd be really curious to hear your thoughts on this alternative method. Do you see value in it, or do you think there are potential downsides? I'd love to know if you've explored this angle and what you think about it. Good question here. You know, this is a common one, particularly when guys are getting started with porn or deeper into it. It's like, you know, what's the role of a porn blocker? Should I use it or should I not? Okay, so this is a good question, and it's one that's pretty common, and usually there's kind of like two extremes. So let's talk about the extremes, and then we'll talk about where I actually stand. On one extreme is you got the full lockdown mentality where, you know, you've got like 3 layers of like internet blockers on your phone, on every single device. You got Covenant Eyes, you know, that sends a report to a friend or whatever if you relapse, and you know, all this other kind of stuff, like full tech lockdown. I've even heard of guys like legitimately throwing away their phones or locking them in a safe or getting rid of their laptop, that kind of thing. Even one guy just completely shut off his internet. Then on the flip side, okay, is you've got the zero filter approach, where it's like kind of like what you're talking about here. This other YouTuber I'm not familiar with is like, you know, no, we don't want to use blockers. We want to build up our own internal control. And the idea is like, I'm going to build this self-mastery so that I don't need a filter. I don't need a blocker in order to quit. And both sides have their merit. And honestly, I'm kind of in the middle. I think that blockers are very useful as a speed bump, because for a lot of guys, especially if they're coming from a high frequency of use, they're just so automatic with their porn use. I remember Alexander Rhodes, the guy who founded NoFap. I worked with him for a while years ago. Like, he said that like it was almost like muscle memory. He would sit down at his computer and literally in like less than a second, he was at porn, because his browser would already be up. He could press Control L, that would put the cursor on the browser bar, and he would type in the first letter of his favorite porn site. It would auto-complete the rest of it because he went there a lot, and he'd just press enter. So it'd be like, sit down, and then he was at porn. It was just instant. And if you're at that point, just trying to be present with the urge is going to be very difficult. You're going to have a lot of times where you just miss it, and you're going to relapse, okay? So adding some friction there, where you can't just go there, you can't just slide down that autopilot chute so instantaneously, is actually a blessing. Because if you can't do that, it gives you a little gap. It gives you a little buffer where you can start to do that mindset work. And that's where I see porn blockers being useful for. And it can even be useful for guys who have already generally gotten clean. You know, they've gone beyond 90 days. They still might want to keep a porn filter on so that they can just protect themselves from any stupid misclicks, right? Like they can, like if they have a moment of weakness, they have that blocker that pops up and it's like, oh wait, what the hell am I doing? Like, you know, forget this, right? It gives them that little external cue to get their head back on track. Now, the reason why you don't want to entirely rely upon porn blockers is because you can always get around them. All right. Like, I found for some guys who rely heavily on blockers, they actually make a game out of overcoming the blocker. It becomes kind of like a, you know, they get almost addicted to like, oh, getting around the filter is like this little video game, and then porn and this like orgasm is the reward for solving the puzzle. Okay. Like, it's kind of an insane sounding thing, but I've seen it. No matter how robust you make your blockers, you can do it. You can still get the porn if you want. I remember, this was years ago now, but I remember one guy was telling me like, oh, yep, I figured out how to quit. I just, you know, put this super intense blocker on my internet on the like, you know, IP level, or I don't even know how he installed it. And he's like, and then I took the password to it, I put it in a box, I dug a hole in the backyard, and I put it in the, in this little thing. And it's like, there's no way I'm gonna like, oh wait, yeah, he dug a hole, he put the password in the hole, and then he put the shovel up in his attic. And he's like, there's no way that I'm going to go up to my attic, grab that shovel, go into the backyard, dig up that password, and relapse. And he's like, I've finally solved this. Well, like a week or two goes by, and I hear from the guy again. He's like, yeah, I did just that. I went up and I dug up the thing and I relapsed. And so it's like, yeah, you can't rely entirely on these things because, at some point the inner game has to come to fore, right? And if you want to live a truly porn-free life, you've got to be able to have legitimate self-control, because, there's always going to be, you're not always going to be on a controlled device if you're not like living in the woods or whatever off grid. We have to build up that internal control. Blockers can help, but if you want to, really do that inner work so that you can live free, like, where I'm at, someone could literally show me porn, I can see it and be like, and I can walk away and I can be fine because I've actually conditioned my mind to overcome this stuff. I know what to say to myself, what to shift. It doesn't mean that like I don't find the female form attractive or anything like that. It just means like I know how to come back to my truth. And so if you, that's a skill. It's something that needs to be practiced, and you need to condition your mind to this. You need to put in literal reps, because you've put in, a lot of reps for going down the path of lust, going down the path of watching porn. So that's a big, conditioned pattern, right? It's almost like you've learned a bad way to shoot foul shots, like you do it like in a really crappy form. It's like by like throwing it behind your head or something weird like that. You get used to it. Well, you got to practice your foul shots with good form. And you want to do it, you want to do those reps before the craving actually hits, right? Like you don't wait until game day to shoot foul shots, right? You shoot them in practice. And so to do this, I recommend using the metascript method. All right, it's a simple journaling technique. You can do a few minutes every morning, and you can start doing this pre-programming work to like how you want to respond to the cravings. Like, I don't think the best way to handle cravings is in the moment. All right. Like, yeah, you're going to need to develop some of those skills, but generally speaking, you want to already know your response. And then when the craving strikes, you just want to remember it. And so that's what this technique that I teach in metascripting involves. It's creating that response ahead of time so that when it hits, you can just remember it, which is way easier to do when your brain's all itchy and craving porn. All right. Like when that craving hits, like you're not going to be able to employ your highest thinking faculties. You're not going to be able to like go deep and like sort through things, at least not all the time. And if you, not with high frequency. I'm not saying it's impossible. Okay. Like it's for sure a skill you can develop, but I've just found it's way simpler to do it, in a more controlled state when your energy's high, your mind is clear. So yeah, if you want to learn how to do that, just click the link in the description, watch the short training, and it's totally free, and I think you'll get a lot out of it. So, all right, guys, hopefully you found this useful. Let me know what you think. If you've got any ideas on like how filters have worked for you, or any stories around that kind of stuff, drop them in there. And of course, if you got any questions, shoot them over to me at podcast@frontlineman.com, and I'd love to hear from you. All right, that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. Yeah.